So now, speak to us about each one individually, and we will stand in your shoes, but we will speak to your children from your perspective, but through the eyes of Source. And let's see what we might say that you might be able to use, or maybe you can find the feeling of it as we say it.
Okay. We'll start with the oldest, the 19-year-old. A couple weeks ago, he was so angry. Like, he would have been really happy if he could have ripped somebody's head off or killed himself, or, I mean, the anger was just overwhelming. He was so upset.
In the middle of all of this, Esther received the new Serenity Prayer. And the final line of it said, "And please grant me the wisdom to hide the bodies of those who made me mad."
Yeah. And the crazy part was so much of what he wanted, he got. But now he didn't want it anymore. It was almost like it came too fast, and now it's like, well, I didn't really want this job. I didn't really want to move out, but I hate that town more than where I live now. And it was all these different things. And if I was really myself around my friends, nobody would like me. And he went on how he doesn't like most people. And I didn't say much. I just listened. And, but it's hard, especially when he thinks sometimes it's just better to go back to pure positive energy. But he wouldn't because of me and maybe one other person in his life that he cares about. And so, which is probably because I'm his mom, I feel like crap once he's done. And then he feels better. And he tells me, 2 weeks have gone by, everything's much better now. And he considers this whole thing this game. Well, I get the game, he'll tell me. I get the game, but why can't I just have this right now? He thinks that instant manifestation will make it all better. And when I try to say, you just have to be happy with where you're at. Try to the whole thing, which maybe is wrong on my part, is to not focus on what you don't have and how much you want it. We always talk about being stuck down here, and be happy with where things are at right now, and it will only get better. And it's true, when he feels good, everything goes better. But when he feels bad, it's so bad. It is so miserable.
Well, that's
and hard
really
to be around him. Because it breaks my heart, not for any other reason.
Well, it's a good thing to acknowledge that when he feels bad, he feels very, very bad, because that means when he feels bad, it's a true departure from who he really is. And if you could focus upon the fact that who he really is must be something very different from that, and that's the reason that feeling bad feels so bad, you can take some solace in that. Here's a really big piece that we want to give to you, and we think you can hear it easily. When you listen to your children or to anyone, you're very wise. We can feel that you get this. You're like your son. You get the game. You know that positive thoughts feel one way and negative thoughts feel another. And you've been exercising some measure of control, and you've noticed the correlation between your thoughts and what's happening. And you're like everybody. You're getting better and better at it, and you're better at it relative to some subjects than others. You're really doing quite well. But have you noticed, all of you, have you noticed that when someone's complaining to you about something that's really going wrong in their life, their complaint is an asking. They're asking you for ideas or for solutions, in the same way that the contrast is causing them to ask the universe at large for improvement. And just like they're not in a vibrational place where they can let the universe deliver the solution to them, they're not in a place where they can let your words deliver the solution to them. So what's really happening is when anyone, but especially someone that you really care about, asks you with really a lot of drama for solutions to a problem that's so active and alive within them, they are in the last place, an impossible place to hear your answer, even if it is the most brilliant answer of all times. Don't try to teach with your words. Teach with the clarity of your example.
Okay.
Next child?
Next child, the 14-year-old boy.
All right, now, hear that attitude you gave us. Now I want to talk about my 14-year-old mess up.
Yeah. No, he's great. They're all great.
Well, we know that, but what was that feeling?
Because what you just said, I could have that conversation with my 19-year-old. We talk well,
yes.
And with my next one, it's hard to have kind of any conversation.
But you see,
And, and he doesn't ask.
Now, before you go further, tell us
Okay.
about the next one.
Oh, the next one's my daughter.
Yes,
She's 10.
yes, and?
Well, she's a drama queen. But she's so.
And then the 8-year-old?
And then the 8-year-old who is totally oblivious to anything going.
All right, so do you see
He's
what
really
what you're
happy.
helping us explain? So the 8-year-old, still more tuned in, tapped in, turned on.
absolutely.
Living happily ever after, doesn't give a rip what any of you think about anything.
Oh.
Then the 10-year-old, now girls are always more advanced in their self-destruction than boys. So they get there faster. Now you're talking about your 14-year-old, and what were your exact words?
Well, I can't talk to him the same way.
But what we're getting at is the longer they live, the more socialized they are, and the less connected with source they become. The thing that you're helping us to say in a really exact way is that when you get here, you're more tuned in, tapped in, turned on. And the longer that you bang around with others, the more you try to please them, the more you try to find ways of seeing life through their viewpoint, the more you try to morph what life means to them into what life means to you. And what we're wanting to suggest to you is that in the same way that your 14-year-old isn't really asking, that's the healthy state of being that we would like you to begin fixating on. In other words, we would like you to say about your 19-year-old what you're saying about the 14-year-old. It really doesn't do any good to have any long conversations because he's not really asking and doesn't really listen to what I say anyway. It sounds strange as someone who is counseling parents on parenting, but we're really saying to you, by over-parenting, you coax them away from their own guidance, which is never a good thing. By under-parenting, you elicit from them a self-surviving mechanism that will give them the opportunity to begin listening to what's coming forth from within. So your children are sort of teaching you through life experience what these words that we're giving, which don't teach, we're trying to help match up. We want you to understand that so many people think that they have to prepare their children to socialize in the world. But then what happens is all they do is call them away from the guidance from within, and then they're not happy even though they're going through the motions of life, where the independence that we want you to encourage in them is independence from you and other humans who would seek to call them this way and that way, but an alignment with the source that comes forth from within them. So to the 14-year-old, you could say on a really regular basis, I'm glad you're not listening to me because I never wanted to be your source of information anyway, because you have something really good going on within you. To your 10-year-old, you could say, I'm glad that you're a drama queen because the life that you're living is causing you to ask for more early on, and I know that it will serve you well as you are moving through life. To your 19-year-old, you could say, I'm sorry that I worked so hard in answering questions that you weren't listening to the answers because the answers were never meant to come through me. They are within you. In other words, you're saying the same thing to all of them in the vernacular that they can best hear. But more important than what you're saying to any of them is what we're wanting you to get from us as we are having this conversation. And we think life is teaching it to you, not these words. You've got no choice. They're not hearing you anyway. Nothing that you say is making any difference anyway. All you're doing is using them as your excuse to not be lined up with who you are. And do you know that someone who wants to be happy, like all of your children, but especially the 19-year-old, when he sees you listening to him and feeling worse and worse and worse, he feels worse and worse and worse because he is an uplifter at the very core of his being. It would be far better for him to see you say, you're not listening to me anyway, and you don't need my guidance anyway because you're figuring it out and I know who you are and you're going to figure this out, so let's just not have this conversation. It would be better for him to hear you standing on stable footing and talking to him like that than watching his own mother, who he loves with all of his heart, to wither before his eyes and on very deep levels know that he's responsible for this current withering because it's coming in response to what he's saying, and that's what's got him upset more than anything. And that's why he's coming back to you and then saying to you, oh, getting that off my chest, it really helped me to feel better. We dramatized it. I launched stronger rockets. So next time he says something to you, say, good, I'm glad it helped. Never do that again. And then say, and even when you try, I'm in a different place now. Because I'm just going to fast forward to you coming out into the light like you always do, and I'm not going to go through the valley of death with you again. I'm not going to do it again. It's not necessary. It didn't help you. It didn't help me. And then say to him, I think it upsets you more than anything else when you upset me. But I'm not going to hold you responsible for upsetting me, because it was never your job to live the perfect life so I could live happily ever after anyway. You're not born to serve me. You're born to serve you. I'm born to serve me. So I'm going to serve me and be the best example of serving me that I can be in front of you. And you serve you and be the best example that you can be in front of me to serve you. And together we'll be powerful co-creators, but you've got no problems that you can't solve, and I've got no problems that I can't solve. We're all backed up by source energy. We've all got no problems. What are we all scrambling around making problems out of life when there are no problems? Say to your kids, if someone's mean to you, don't go there anymore. If someone's not nice, go someplace where there are nice people. Don't beat the drum of how ignorant or how mean or how inconsiderate someone was. All you do is draw all the ignorant, mean, inconsiderate ones out of the woodwork. They all swarm around you. When you fixate on one and let it become active in your vibration, they come from everywhere and surround you. And pretty soon you start believing that no one is there to do a good job when they're all there wanting to do a good job. They just can't buck your current, you see. Helpful? Is there one perfectly right way to live life? There's not one way of doing anything. You've all come forth in such incredible diversity to add to the balance of the whole. There are just two perspectives, two things that you want to think about relative to yourself or relative to anybody that you care about. There is alignment with who they are, and there is misalignment with who they are. Which am I practicing now, and which am I supporting or being an example of? Which am I encouraging? What am I adding to? With my husband, with my children's father, with my children, what is it that I am doing right now? Which of those two and only two choices am I amplifying? Am I amplifying alignment or misalignment? Am I amplifying allowing or resistance? Am I seeing through the eyes of source, or am I seeing through the eyes of being pinched off? Which am I doing right now? That's the only thing you got to ask yourself. And when you ask that question, and then you reach for the better feeling thought, and you ask that question and you reach for the better feeling thought, and you ask that question and you reach for the better feeling thought, before you know it, you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on. And everyone that interacts with you benefits from that, you see. Good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.